You do not belong in this family!
She is my wife.
I knew it would end like this.
The billionaire slammed his hand on the glass table so hard that every voice in the room died. Then he pointed at the young woman beside his son and said, "You fooled him, but you will never fool me. Every gold digger reaches for money before love." His cold words spread through the grand dining hall like ice. Guests stared without moving. Cameras from a family celebration still recorded every second. The young woman did not cry. She simply lifted her head and looked into his eyes. Her calm face confused everyone. If she had defended herself, they would have expected it. Instead, she stood in complete silence, as though she already knew something nobody else did. No one understood why she stayed so calm. The woman was named Amara. She wore a simple blue dress with no costly jewels. She had married Rowan only 3 weeks earlier, in a quiet wedding that shocked the city's richest families. Rowan was the only son of billionaire Victor Ashford, a man famous for building towers, banks, and companies across the world. Victor believed money could reveal every lie. The moment he saw Amara, he decided she wanted only the Ashford fortune. Rowan stepped in front of his wife. "You will not speak to her like that." Victor laughed. "You are blind." She appeared from nowhere, and suddenly you call her your wife. Does that sound like love? "It sounds like trust," Rowan answered. The room became silent again. Amara gently touched Rowan's arm. "Please," she whispered, "do not fight because of me." Victor shook his head with disgust. "You even know how to sound innocent." Several guests nodded quietly. Rumors had already filled the city. Some claimed Amara had planned everything for years. Others said she had changed her name to hide her past. No one had real proof. Still, gossip moved faster than truth. Amara looked around the room. Every face carried doubt except one. An older housekeeper named Mrs. Elin watched with kind eyes. She had worked for the Ashford family for 30 years. She noticed things others ignored. She had seen Amara thank every worker by name before greeting the wealthy guests. She had watched Amara help a nervous waiter clean a broken glass without caring who was watching. Those small moments stayed in Mrs. Ellen's heart. Victor picked up a thin folder. "I hired investigators." Gasps filled the room. "I wanted facts before making accusations." He opened the folder slowly. "They found almost nothing about you before 5 years ago." Whispers grew louder. "A woman without a history is hiding something." Amara finally spoke. "Or someone worked very hard to disappear." Victor smiled. "There, you admit it." "No," she replied softly. "I only said the truth." Before Victor could answer, another guest hurried into the hall and whispered into his ear. Victor frowned. "What do you mean security stopped them?" "They refused to leave, sir." "Who?" "They would only say they came for Miss Amara." Victor looked toward the entrance. "I invited no one else." Amara's eyes changed for the first time. A small flash of surprise crossed her face before she hid it again. Rowan noticed. "You know who it is?" "I hoped they would never come," she answered. The large doors remained closed, but everyone felt something strange outside. Even the musicians stopped playing. Victor folded his arms. "If these are your friends, this should be interesting." Amara lowered her eyes. "They are not my friends." "Then who are they?" She stayed quiet. The silence made every heartbeat seem louder. One of the security guards rushed inside. Sweat covered his forehead. "Sir, we have a problem." Victor frowned. "You have 10 guards outside." "Yes, sir." "And?" "They will not move." Victor's voice hardened. "Then remove them." "We tried." "You tried?" The guard swallowed. They showed identification. Victor reached for the card. His face changed after only one glance. "Impossible. Only a handful of people in the world carried that seal." He looked back at the guard. "Are you certain it is real?" The guard nodded. "I checked twice." Guests leaned forward, desperate to hear more. Victor quietly slipped the card into his pocket before anyone else could see it. "Continue the party," he ordered, but nobody moved. Curiosity had already taken over. Rowan stepped closer. "Father, what is happening?" "Nothing." "That is not true." Victor looked toward the entrance again. For the first time in many years, uncertainty appeared in his eyes. Amara closed them for a brief moment. "It is too late now," she whispered. Mrs. Ellen heard her. "What do you mean, dear?" "They found me." The older woman gently squeezed Amara's hand. "You sound frightened." I am. But you have done nothing wrong. Amara smiled sadly. Sometimes people do not chase you because you did something wrong. Mrs. Elin frowned. Then why? Because of who your family is. Before another word could be spoken, every light in the grand hall suddenly went out. A few guests screamed. The room fell into darkness. Only the moonlight entered through the tall windows. Then the lights returned. Standing inside the open doorway were 6 men in black suits. They had entered so quietly that nobody had heard a single footstep. Each man stood perfectly still. None looked around the room. All waited. Then one more figure appeared behind them. An older man with silver hair walked forward at an unhurried pace. His suit was simple. His face showed no anger, yet every guard stepped back without being asked. The room became so silent that even breathing sounded loud. Victor stared at the stranger. His confidence faded. He recognized that face from secret business meetings attended only by the world's most powerful people. The stranger ignored everyone else. His eyes rested only on Amara. She lowered her head, not in fear, in respect. The man smiled with warmth that surprised everyone. Then he spoke 5 quiet words that turned the entire room upside down. My princess, I finally found you. If you're already hooked by this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which country you're watching from. The biggest secrets are only beginning to unfold. The room froze as if time itself had stopped. No one dared speak. Victor Ashford stared at the older man, searching his memory. He had spent 40 years sitting with presidents, kings, and billionaires, yet he had never imagined seeing this man inside his own home. Rowan looked from Amara to the stranger. Princess? The single word echoed through the hall. Amara slowly lifted her eyes. Her voice was gentle. You should not have come. The older man smiled with sadness. I promised your mother I would never stop looking for you. A wave of whispers swept across the guests. Her mother. Victor stepped forward. I don't know who you are, but this is my house. The man turned toward him without changing his calm expression. I know exactly whose house this is. His voice stayed soft, but every person in the room felt its weight. I also know you just called my daughter a gold digger. Victor's jaw tightened. Your daughter? No? The man shook his head. My heart chose her long before blood ever could. Nobody understood what he meant. Rowan gently held Amara's hand. Please tell me what's happening. Amara closed her eyes for a moment. I wanted you to know me before you knew my past. And now? She looked at him with tears she refused to let fall. Now my past has found me. The older man nodded toward one of the men behind him. A small leather case was placed on the dining table. He opened it carefully. Inside were photographs, letters, a tiny silver bracelet, and a faded picture of a little girl smiling beside a young woman. Amara covered her mouth. She had not seen that picture in almost 20 years. The older man picked it up. This was taken 1 week before your mother disappeared. Gasps filled the hall. Victor watched closely. Something about the photograph disturbed him. The woman looked familiar, very familiar. Who was her mother? Someone whispered. The older man answered without hesitation. She was the bravest woman I ever knew. Amara's hands trembled. I thought she abandoned me. She never did. His voice cracked for the first time. She died protecting you. The words struck Amara harder than any insult ever could. Her knees almost gave way. Rowan caught her before she fell. She buried her face against his shoulder. Years of unanswered questions crashed into a single heartbreaking moment. Victor remained silent. For the first time that evening, he no longer saw a woman chasing money. He saw a daughter carrying pain. The older man looked around the room. You judged her without asking why she had no family. No one answered. You called her poor because she dressed simply. Still, nobody spoke. You believed kindness was a trick. His eyes settled on Victor. That mistake may become the greatest regret of your life. Victor tried to hide his unease. You still haven't told us your name. A faint smile crossed the older man's face. I rarely need to. One of the guests suddenly turned pale. He recognized the silver crest on the men's lapel pins. His glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. No, he whispered. It can't be. Every eye turned toward him. With shaking hands, he pointed at the older man. That is the man the world's richest families fear. The man whose companies quietly rescue or destroy billion-dollar empires with a single signature. The hall fell silent again. The older man gave a polite nod. Then he looked at Amara with unmistakable affection. "And today, I came for only one reason." He smiled. "To take my princess home." Amara's heart pounded. Every face in the room turned toward her. Only minutes earlier, she had been mocked as a woman chasing wealth. Now the same people looked at her with shock, fear, and endless questions. She wished none of this had happened. She had spent years building a quiet life. She wanted to be known for her kindness, not for a family name she had tried to leave behind. Rowan gently touched her shoulder. "You don't have to go anywhere you don't want to." She smiled at him. "I know." The older man stepped closer. "My name is Magnus Vale." A loud gasp swept through the hall. Even those who did not follow business news had heard stories about Magnus. Some called him the Invisible King. Others said governments sought his advice during financial disasters. His companies owned ports, hospitals, technology firms, and banks across continents. Yet he almost never appeared in public. Victor's face lost its color. Years ago, he had tried for months to arrange a meeting with Magnus. Every request had been politely refused. Now Magnus stood inside his home because of Amara. Victor cleared his throat. "If there has been a misunderstanding, we can discuss it." Magnus looked at him calmly. "There was no misunderstanding. You heard only part of the conversation. I heard enough." The words landed like heavy stones. Magnus picked up the small silver bracelet from the table. It belonged to Amara when she was 4. Amara slowly reached for it. Her fingers trembled as she touched the tiny charm shaped like a star. A memory flashed through her mind. A warm hand. A woman's gentle laugh. A promise whispered before bedtime. Then darkness. Tears finally rolled down her cheeks. "I remember her voice," she whispered. Magnus nodded. "Your mother asked me to protect you if anything ever happened." "Then why did it take so long to find me?" Pain filled his eyes. "Because someone made sure you disappeared." The room became silent again. Rowan frowned. Someone wanted her hidden? Magnus looked directly at him. Someone feared what she would become. Before anyone could ask another question, one of Magnus's aides walked quickly into the hall. "Sir." Magnus turned. "What is it?" "We found another letter." Amara looked confused. "Another?" The aide handed Magnus a sealed envelope that looked old and worn. It was hidden inside the bracelet case. Magnus carefully opened it. The handwriting was faded. He recognized it immediately. It belonged to Amara's mother. He quietly read the first lines. Then his expression changed. This letter was different from every other one. He looked at Amara. "You need to hear this." The room held its breath. Magnus read aloud. "If my daughter ever reads these words, tell her never to hate the family that judged her. The greatest danger will never come from strangers. It will come from someone who already smiles beside her." A cold chill spread across the room. Every guest looked around without thinking. Someone close to Amara could not be trusted. Someone in that very hall. Someone already pretending to care. For the first time that night, even Rowan felt fear. He quietly pulled Amara closer. Without realizing it, every person in the room had become a suspect. The silence became heavier than stone. No one looked comfortable anymore. Guests who had been smiling only minutes before now avoided one another's eyes. Every handshake from earlier suddenly felt suspicious. Every friendly laugh sounded fake in their memories. Amara held the letter tightly. She read the final lines again and again. "The greatest danger will never come from strangers. It will come from someone who already smiles beside her." Her mother had written those words years ago. But who had she been warning her about? Rowan wrapped an arm around her. "You are not facing this alone." She looked into his eyes. "I believe you." Victor watched them in silence. Shame slowly replaced his anger. He had spent weeks trying to prove Amara was after his family's fortune. Now he realized he had never asked a single question about her life. Mrs. Aylan quietly stepped beside Amara and handed her a clean handkerchief. "Your mother must have loved you very much." Amara nodded. "I wish I had known." Before anyone spoke again, the sound of slow clapping echoed from the back of the hall. Every head turned. A well-dressed man walked out from among the guests with a smile that seemed almost too perfect. It was Adrian Cole. For 12 years, Adrian had served as Victor's most trusted legal advisor. He handled family contracts, private agreements, and confidential business records. Victor trusted him so completely that he rarely read documents before signing them. Victor frowned. "Adrian, what are you doing?" Adrian stopped clapping. I've been waiting for this reunion for a very long time. Magnus's eyes narrowed. I remember you. Adrian smiled. I hoped you would. A wave of unease swept across the room. Rowan stepped in front of Amara. What are you talking about? Adrian laughed softly. When Amara disappeared as a child, everyone searched in the wrong places. Amara felt her heart race. You know what happened? I know everything. Victor stared at him in disbelief. What do you mean? Adrian's smile slowly faded. It was my father who arranged her disappearance. The room exploded with gasps. No, Victor whispered. Adrian continued without emotion. He believed that if Amara vanished, certain business empires would fall into different hands. Magnus took one slow step forward. I spent 20 years hunting the people responsible. I know. And now you've admitted it. I've admitted my father's crime. The room remained frozen. My father died believing he had won. Adrian looked directly at Amara. But he never knew you survived. Amara's hands shook. So, why tell us now? For the first time, sadness replaced Adrian's confidence. Because I spent my whole life cleaning up someone else's evil. He reached into his jacket. Several guests screamed, fearing the worst. Instead, Adrian pulled out a thick envelope. He placed it gently on the table. Inside are original records, bank transfers, names, and signed orders. Magnus opened the envelope. His expression hardened. Everything Adrian said was true. Every missing piece of the mystery was finally there. Victor slowly sank into a chair. The accusations he had thrown at Amara now felt unbearable. He looked at her with tear-filled eyes. I called you a gold digger. Amara quietly met his gaze. Yes, I was wrong. She nodded gently. Yes. Victor lowered his head. I don't expect forgiveness. Before Amara could answer, Magnus folded the documents and smiled for the first time that night. The truth has finally come home, but Amara could not stop thinking about one question. If Adrian had come to confess, who had sent the anonymous message that brought Magnus to the Ashford mansion on this exact night? Someone else still knew the full story, and that person had not revealed themselves yet. Morning sunlight poured through the tall windows, but it did little to warm the room. No one had gone home. The celebration had become a search for truth, and every person waited for the final piece. Magnus stood beside the long table, reading every page Adrian had handed him. The records matched old reports, missing dates, and forgotten names. There was no doubt that Amara had been taken from the life meant for her. Rowan stayed close to his wife. You look tired, he said softly. I am, Amara replied. But I have waited my whole life for answers. I can wait a little longer. Mrs. Ellen brought her a cup of tea. You need your strength, dear. Amara smiled. Thank you. Victor watched from across the room. He wanted to walk over, but guilt held his feet in place. At last, he forced himself forward. Amara, she turned to face him. I cannot erase what I said. No? I judged your clothes instead of your heart. She remained silent. I believed money told me everything about people. His voice shook. I forgot that kindness tells a much better story. The room grew quiet. Amara looked at the man who had humiliated her in front of everyone. She saw pride broken by truth. My mother taught me something before I lost her, she said gently. She said that a real apology changes tomorrow, not yesterday. Victor nodded. Then let me change tomorrow. Before Amara could answer, one of Magnus's aides hurried into the hall carrying a tablet. Sir, we traced the anonymous message. Everyone looked up. Magnus asked, who sent it? The aide hesitated. It wasn't sent by a business rival. Then who? It came from a private hospital. Amara frowned. A hospital? The aide nodded. The message was scheduled years ago. It was programmed to be delivered only if someone finally matched Amara's childhood records. Shock spread across every face. Who scheduled it? Rowan asked. The aide swallowed. A nurse. Magnus's eyes widened. What was her name? Grace Nolan. Amara suddenly covered her mouth. The name stirred something deep inside her memory. I remember, she whispered. A woman used to sing to me. Magnus closed his eyes. Grace. He smiled sadly. She was your mother's closest friend. The aide continued. Grace died 3 years ago. Amara's shoulders fell. So she never stopped looking for me. No, Magnus answered. She made sure the truth would find you, even after she was gone. Tears filled Amara's eyes. A woman she barely remembered had protected her for decades. Magnus carefully folded the final document. There is one last instruction. Everyone waited. It says the truth must be shared with everyone who believed the lies. Victor slowly stood. Then I will begin. He turned toward every guest in the hall. My name gave me power. He looked at Amara. But today, her character gave me humility. The guests lowered their heads. Many had whispered cruel rumors. Now shame filled the room. Just then, another black car stopped outside the mansion. A young woman stepped out, holding a small wooden box. She asked quietly, "Is Amara here?" When Amara nodded, the stranger smiled through tears. "I've been carrying something your mother wanted you to have." The young woman walked into the hall with careful steps, holding the small wooden box against her heart, as though it were priceless. No one tried to stop her. Every person sensed that this moment belonged to Amara. "My name is Lila," she said softly. "Grace raised me after I lost my parents. Before she passed away, she asked me to protect this until I found you." She placed the box in Amara's hands. "It has always been yours." Amara took a slow breath before lifting the lid. Inside rested a simple gold locket, a faded photograph, and a folded letter. Her hands trembled as she opened the letter. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was her mother's. Tears blurred her vision as she read. "My sweet Amara, if these words reach you, then hope has won. Never measure your worth by the riches around you. Let people remember your kindness before they remember your name. If you ever find the family that loves you, choose forgiveness when your heart is ready. It is the only treasure that grows when it is given away." Silence filled the hall. There was not a dry eye in the room. Amara closed the letter and held it against her chest. For the first time since she was a little girl, she felt complete. Victor slowly stepped forward. "I spent my life protecting my fortune," he said. "Yet today, I learned the greatest wealth is the courage to admit when we are wrong." He looked directly at Amara. "I cannot ask you to forget what I did, but I promise that from this day forward, you will always be treated with the respect you deserved from the beginning." Amara studied his face. The pride that once lived there had disappeared. She saw only honesty. She offered him a gentle smile. "Respect is enough." Victor's eyes filled with grateful tears. He quietly embraced his son, then looked at Amara. "Thank you for giving this family another chance." Magnus watched the moment with quiet satisfaction. "This is what your mother wanted," he said. "Not revenge, healing." Rowan slipped his hand into Amara's. "I married you because I loved your heart. Now I know the truth about your past, and it changes nothing." Amara smiled. "It changes one thing." "What is that?" "I know I never lost my family." Magnus chuckled. "You gained another one too." Laughter gently replaced the sorrow that had filled the mansion only hours before. The rumors that had once followed Amara disappeared as quickly as they had begun. Across the city, people no longer spoke about a gold digger. They spoke about a woman who answered hatred with dignity and pain with grace. Victor established a scholarship in Amara's mother's name for children who had lost their families. He insisted the first plaque bear only one sentence: "Never judge a person before learning their story." Years later, visitors still stopped to read those words. Many left with tears in their eyes. Some left determined to become kinder. As for Amara, she never asked for power, titles, or endless wealth. She simply lived the lesson her mother had written long ago. Kindness outlives riches. Truth always finds its way home. And the greatest victory is not proving your enemies wrong. It is refusing to become like them. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to Naughtail's channel, and share it with your family and friends. Tell us your favorite moment in the comments, and let us know which country you're watching from. Until the next story, stay kind, stay hopeful, and remember that every person has a story worth understanding before they are judged.